Alright class, today is the last day of this unit. We're doing 9.6.2, which are half angle formulas. This one's a little interesting because we have these plus or minus signs in front of the formula. Now, to figure out which one you use, the sign depends on the value of the trig function. I can't spell today. In the quadrant that theta over 2 is in. So for example, if I'm doing the first problem, we'll talk about it actually. So you can pause this to keep writing, but we're looking for, so you have to pick a sign for the final answer is basically what I'm trying to tell you. So I actually will talk about that first when we move down. Alright, so for example, this says the sine of 157.5. So you have to think, well, first of all, what quadrant is the sine of, well, what quadrant is this in? This is in Q2, where sine in Q2 is positive. So sine is positive. So I know my answer is going to be positive at the end. That's fine. Now we have to figure out what theta is. We know what theta over 2 is. Theta over 2 is equal to 157.5. So what angle was divided by 2? Well, if you double this, you get that theta is actually 315. So that's what we're going to use for our formula. Now we go up to the top and see that theta over 2 is that. 1 minus cosine over 2 all under a radical. So we get this is equal to the sine of 315 over 2, which gives us the radical of 1 minus cosine of 315 over 2. Yeah. Okay. So now we simplify this. And notice how I have a plus in front because we talked about that 157.5 is in quadrant 2 where sine is positive. So if I fix this, I get 1 minus, this becomes root 2 over 2 because it's quadrant 4 all over 2. So what you can do is multiply. You don't like to have fractions within this, so what I do is I multiply the top and bottom by whatever will cancel out the denominator. So I multiply by 2, multiply by 2. So you get a final answer of the square root of 2 minus root 2, because the 2 will go to both things, cancel there, divided by 4. Or, to simplify even further, you can take the square root of 4, so you could say it's just the square root of 2 minus root 2 on top, and then there's no root for the bottom. Okay? Alright, so same thing for this one. 7 pi over 12, well 6/12 is 1/2, so this is Q2, where tangent is negative. I'm just going to put the sign. Alright, so I'm going to use a negative sign for this answer later. Alright, so theta over 2 is equal to 7 pi over 12. If I multiply by 2, I get theta is equal to 7 pi over 6. So I got that it's the tangent of 7 pi over 6 over 2, which is the formula 1 minus cosine over 1 plus cosine. So this, it's going to be negative square root 1 minus cosine 7 pi over 6 over 1 plus cosine 7 pi over 6. So the cosine is 7 pi over 6, it's quadrant 3, but it doesn't matter for cosine. 2 and 3 are both negative. 7 pi over 6 would be root 3 over 2, negative root 3 over 2, because that's a 30-degree angle. So we get negative the square root of 1 minus negative root 3 over 2 over 1 plus negative root 3 over 2, which equals negative square root of 1 plus root 3 over 2 over 1 minus root 3 over 2. So again, notice how the fractions both have 2's on the bottom. I'm going to multiply the top by 2 and the bottom by 2. So we get that the final answer is equal to negative square root of 2 plus root 3 over 2 minus root 3. And that's that. Now we have two more. These ones are a little trickier in the sense that you don't know where the angle is, but we can figure it out. Actually, it kind of tells us here. This angle is in quadrant 4. So we're going to have to draw a triangle in quadrant 4. However, we want to know where theta over 2 is so we know what sign we use. So to figure that out, I'm going to divide everything by 2. And I get 3 pi over 4 theta over 2 pi. So it's saying theta over 2 is between 3 pi over 4 and pi, which is quadrant 2. So that's Q2, and in Q2 cosine is negative. So my final answer for this problem will be negative. Now I'm going to do a triangle real quick. Now the triangle will be in Q4 based on that information. Tangent's negative 3 over 1. So I'll put those there. If I do negative 3 squared plus 1 squared, we get root 10 for the hypotenuse. Alright, so now I need to use the cosine formula. That's 1 plus cosine over 2 all under a root. Yeah. So that means the formula is going to become, so this thing right here is going to equal, and I want a negative version of it. So negative square root of 1 plus cosine of theta. So the cosine of theta is 1 over root 10 over 2. So to rationalize, I need to get rid of the thing on the bottom. It's really simple. All you got to do is multiply the top and bottom by root 10. So I get negative root 10 plus 1 over 2 root 10. And then you're done. Okay? Now, we have to figure out where theta is on this one. If secant or cosine is negative, we're in 2 or 3. If tangent is negative, we're in 2 or 4, so we're in 2. So we're in 2 for this one. So if theta is in 2, think about having an angle between 90 and 180. No matter what angle it is, the half of that will be in quadrant 1. Because if you take half of anything in quadrant 2, you'll end up in quadrant 1. So that means we're in quadrant 1, which means the tangent will be positive. We have to draw our triangle. Now, when we draw our triangle, though, we're drawing it for theta, not theta over 2. And theta is in quadrant 2. It says the cotangent is negative 2 over 1, which means the tangent is 1 over 2. Negative will go there, because it's negative x. This is root 5 when you do Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so now we use our formula, and it's kind of like the one we just did above it. This is equal to, let me just do that. This is equal to the square root, and it's going to be positive, 1 plus cosine of theta over 1 minus cosine. I lied. 1 minus cosine of theta. That's why we have those up there. 1 minus cosine of theta. So cosine would be negative 2 over root 5 over 1 plus negative 2 over root 5. So same thing applies. I want to get rid of the denominators. The denominators are root 5, so I'm going to multiply by root 5 to this whole thing, and multiply by root 5 to this whole thing. So I get that my final answer is the square root of root 5, and then these become a plus 2 over root 5 minus 2. And again, this is positive because that's where theta over 2 is. Theta over 2 is in quadrant 1. Okay? So that's how you use the half-angle formulas. The harder thing about that is figuring out the correct sign to put in front of your formula. The rest, and then maybe rationalizing a little bit. Alright, that is it for this unit. I will see you guys later.